Good Tuesday to you again, everybody in COM 651. Welcome to week 6 and the review of your assignment from week 4, because week 5 was just due yesterday on the 25th. And I haven't gotten to grading them yet, or I haven't finished grading them yet. Okay, so all right, so let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with these assignments. All right, because outside of say discussing what it is we're going to be doing in this week, what I'm trying to do in going back and discussing what you were doing last week is give you enough feedback that this will help you in terms of how it is that you tackle the assignment in the current week, what it is that you put in there, and driving both of those is I want you to be aware of what it is that I'm looking for. What is it that I expect from you as the author? All right, so let's talk a little bit about that, and we'll use assignment number 4, that is from the 4th week, because your week number 5 was due just yesterday, and I should have those back to you within a couple of days. Okay. First things first. And I'm sorry to have to go here, but I do. It is of the utmost importance that you cite your sources properly. If you don't, here's the funny thing about this. If you do not cite your sources properly, that's plagiarism. And the funny thing is, if you look in the student handbook concerning plagiarism, you will find that the handbook states that whether you intended it or not, and whether you were aware that it was plagiarism or not, you're still liable, you're still responsible for plagiarism. And depending on the length of the assignment, depending on how blatant the plagiarism was, there's I have a fairly wide discretion as your instructor as to what to do next. From as straightforward as having a conversation with you about this, and then giving you no score, 0 for the assignment, to referring you to the dean to be removed from the university. Okay. So be very careful with your citations. Don't plagiarize. What I'm about to tell you, I'm not flexing, as the term du jour goes, but I read a lot. I mean, academics read a lot by nature, and I read a lot even for an academic. It's a rarity for me that I'm not reading 2 or maybe even 3 books simultaneously. That is, read from this, read from this, read some from this. Consequently, I have developed a really good ear, if that's the way to put it, for knowing if material is in somewhere is coming from that author or coming from somewhere else. And likewise with Chat GPT and these other types of software, I have software that I use that detects the activity of those softwares. I imagine this as my exposure to AI generated material goes up, then I'll probably develop that sense like that. Just something here just doesn't sound right to me. All right. So the point is, I'm going to catch you. I'm going to catch it. And this isn't like a game of cops and robbers. All right. And then because of who we are at Region, that what we're here to do is to forge Christian leaders to transform the world. And that's you. That's me. We have to take our honor and our honesty very seriously. Very seriously. So if you're hung up on an assignment in terms of a deadline, I would rather hear from you and tell me what's going on and ask about an extension than you to take a shortcut, not give proper citation to your material, and then turn it in. Okay, don't do that. Now, I am going back, I'm not foolproof. There may be things I missed, but I'm going back and checking some other papers. I mean, often while I'm grading papers, I just pull out chunks of text and check randomly. So let me put this out there. If you've committed an act of plagiarism, email me and tell me, well, I think I forgot to cite this source, and we'll call it an honest mistake. Because if I go back and I look in the text and I find text, meaning your work, and I find plagiarism, then I'm going to initiate the disciplinary process. And depending on how bad it is or how extensive it is, the prerogative there is to look at work and ask other instructors about your work, to check your work. And the way the handbook reads, if there are 3 instances of plagiarism, the student is turned over to the dean with the recommendation of being expelled from the university. We don't want anything like that. All right. But that's how it goes. So if there has been any instance in this class in which you failed proper citation, I want you to send me a private email and say, yeah, hey, I think maybe I missed it right here. Okay. Because I'm going to be looking very closely at everyone's work, and I'm going back and looking at your work in the coming week. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about for week 6, as you take a look at integrated marketing and how this works in communication, and you make a recommendation to a pastor about using integrated marketing to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the assignment for this week. All right. As I said in the other video, key to your written piece for the week is a well-written, well-edited, well-cited piece of work. Please reread your work. Judiciously catch mistakes. And most importantly, and this is where a number of folks are, losing points. Make sure that you're specific. And I'm going to give you some examples here. And again, I'm not picking on anybody in particular, right? This is taken at random. Okay, so this is from the assignment from week 4. To be digitally disconnected means to be someone who does not have access to the internet, whether that be a person who is homeless or in poverty. Okay, first and foremost, make sure that when you're talking about a term that you understand it, right? They may have access to the internet, they just don't use it. Okay, because of there are barriers, there are physical, technological barriers. Okay, but let's go on. According to Hayes et al., this type of audience requires special communication in order to be reached effectively. These groups are referred to as special publics and are often minority groups. For example, a person who is below the poverty line would likely respond better to communication from someone who empathizes with them. Okay, what if you were writing this, then you need to give me an example. What do you mean? How? Communication in what way? Is this person wandering the homeless camps with little cards explaining to them how and where they access the internet at their local public library? I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but in other words, some specificity. Okay. When communication comes from a place of understanding instead of pity, it will be received better. Okay. What does that mean? And when we're dealing with not-for-profit work, where's the evidence? Now you might be saying, well, that's just kind of obvious, isn't it? No, especially in not-for-profit work, right? That's not obvious. The same approach should be considered when communicating with people who are homeless as well. It is important to communicate with other people's situations in mind so that one may communicate effectively. Okay. How? Communicate how? Communicate what? Communicate on what platform? Where? Where are these people? Make sure this week, as you do your write-up, to include specifics that are well-founded, well-grounded, and documented. Communication and communication techniques, they're not a matter of what we think as individual communicators are most effective. They're driven by what does the data say. I mean, tested by way of effective. Could tap into that, and when I understand, I mean, there's a debate that I think deserves more attention and more energy about how should we approach the study of communication? Is it a social science or is it an art? To belong in the humanities and the arts, or is it somewhere in between? Okay, is it significantly a matter of objectivity, that is what the data says, or is it significantly subjectivity, that is what I feel and say? Okay, that's a debate. Now, I think, at least for my part as a scholar, I think it's data driven, and the approaches that we take and the things that we do should be data driven, especially when you're dealing with public relations. But I think there's room to make the case that, it's as much of an art as it is a science. So, okay, I get it. So you might be thinking, well, this is what seems right to me. Right. But one of the things that you're learning here at Regent, and I want you to learn in these seminars, as a graduate student, here's the main thing, not one of the things. Here's the main thing that you need to try to learn. Whether you're a master's student or PhD, doesn't matter. Okay. You're never going to know it all about any given subject. What you're learning primarily is not a bunch of things like I remember this, I remember this, I remember this, I'm doing this. But what you're learning primarily is a process. That is how to go find out what's the best information about any one of these things, and how to know that is the best information. It's more of a development of a skill concerning a process than it is the capturing and the remembering of a product that is some sort of factoid. That's what you're aiming for. So let that process of you digging around and finding the best source to say, this is why we should connect with the homeless and the digitally disconnected. This is why we should do it, because this is what the data shows. And this is, and by bringing forth good information about a product or process, that's you demonstrating that you know how to look for and find it. Because if you didn't know how to look for and find it, you wouldn't bring it forth. Does that make sense? Okay, if you have any questions about that, please email me. Let's take a look at something, now a different example, something that was done well. Okay. All right. So here the paper begins. The term digitally disconnected refers to audiences who do not access digital media regularly. That's exactly right. It's not that they don't have access to the internet. They just don't do it. Now, there may be, there are reasons that some of these reasons are grounded in they don't have a lot of access, and one tends not to develop a habit of doing something when one doesn't have a lot of access to it. Okay, fine. But the primary definition of digitally disconnected refers to audiences who do not access digital media regularly. This behavior makes communicating with these audiences via digital means difficult. Okay, fair statement. Potential audiences that are likely to be digitally disconnected include the elderly and those in poverty. Okay, now we're sort of drilling down from those that don't access it regularly are digitally disconnected. The digitally disconnected are creating a partnership with relevant organizations in the lives of these audiences is a good way to bridge the gap. for the elderly. Okay, so this author saying, yeah, so one of the ways you can do that is to create a partnership with organizations that are in these folks' life. For example, for the elderly, this may include co-sponsoring an event or message with an organization such as AARP, Association of America Retired Persons, AARP, that's what it stands for, or NCAO, and then there's a citation from Hayes. For those beneath the poverty line, similar partnerships with organizations such as food banks, social service providers could aid communication. Okay, now what I would have liked to have seen from this author is some sort a citation that points to data that we know that those below the poverty line are using food banks with any regularity, and that might seem like a duh to us, but that's not true. Okay, there are food banks in cities that, number one, don't have enough food to keep up with the impoverished population. So a lot of impoverished people just don't go there. And then number two, there are instances in which there are food banks in cities that impoverished people don't know that there are food banks in cities because they're disconnected. So how do they find out? So what I would have liked to have seen is some sort of a citation from this person. By utilizing partnerships with organizations already present in the lives of the audiences, the organizations reach out can utilize a partner's organization familiar with the target audience as an opportunity to introduce this message. Okay, so here again, I would like to have heard, well, what are those organizations? Because we name AARP for the elderly, right? Anything else for those in poverty? What agencies might they be brushing up against? All right, so this is pretty good with room for improvement. Okay, so as you go through the assignment for this week, week 6, keep these in mind. Keep these things in mind. Keep this feedback in mind. Proper citation. Okay. Example with citation. Specificity in your example with citation. And some sort of rhyme and reason grounded in the data that's behind your example that you've cited from a scholarly journal. Why do you recommend this? Like what proof do we have that this process is effective for what you're recommending? What data-driven evidence do we have that suggests, maybe, proof is the wrong word. What data-driven evidence suggests that this, whatever you're recommending, is efficacious, that is, it'll work. Okay? All right, everybody. I'll grade through your week 5 here over the next couple of days. Have a fantastic week with week 6. We're coming down to the end, so everybody hang in there. All right, take care. I'll see you on campus. Bye-bye.